In the quiet hours of the morning when the world has not yet chosen its noise, a gentle truth often rises to the surface. It is the truth of a mind unsure of its duties, a heart divided between what is expected and what is meaningful. Many walk through life this way, steady in their responsibilities, yet distant from the quiet places where wisdom grows. When a teacher meets such a person, the conversation is never about blame. It is simply about reminding the heart of its path. Like a soft breeze brushing across still water, the teacher invites the mind to return to its center. Today's story begins with such an invitation. It begins with a respected official, a learned man, shaped by foreign schooling and heavy duties. He admired a great monk, honored him, and built a place for him to stay. Yet admiration alone is not the same as practice, and practice is not something that waits for the perfect moment. The monk saw this. He spoke gently, encouraging the man to observe his spiritual discipline, to honor the quiet rhythm of the Sabbath, to give his mind a place to rest. But life has many layers. Work pressed on him. Duty followed him. Even on days meant for rest, his mind was tied to obligations. Years passed this way. The man retired. His days belonged to him again. And when the monk returned, he spoke with hopeful warmth. Surely now, the layman could follow the practice with ease. But the heart has its own burdens, and the layman revealed that his mind, no longer bound by government work, was now tangled in worries for his family. His mind was not free at all. The monk smiled, not in ridicule, but in understanding, and he answered with a story, a simple story, holding a quiet mirror to the layman's struggles. The commissioner had always respected the Thingaza Sayadaw. He admired his wisdom, his gentleness, his steady presence. Though he lacked deep knowledge of the scriptures, his devotion was sincere. He built a monastery, welcomed the monk during each visit to Rangoon, and offered support with a generous heart. The monk saw this kindness, yet he also saw the man's constant distance from the practice itself. Whenever he encouraged him to keep the Sabbath, the commissioner explained his difficulty. Under the British administration, the religious days were not holidays. His duties were many. Even Sundays were filled with work. And so, year after year, his practice remained postponed. Time moved on. Seasons changed. The commissioner grew older, reached the end of his service, and stepped away from his duties at last. When Sayadaw returned, he greeted the retired official with gentle hope. Now, surely the man would have space for the Sabbath, space for stillness, space for the mind to rest. But the layman answered with a troubled heart. Though his days were free, his mind was not. Instead of work, worries filled the empty places. Concerns for the well-being of his family, fears about their future. The monk listened quietly. Then, with a small, knowing smile, he began to speak. He offered not a lecture, but a story of a simple feast, a kind villager, and a man from the hills, whose heart was never settled enough to act. It was a story meant to show the layman his own struggle reflected gently back at him. There was once a villager who wished to offer alms to the monks in a generous and joyful way. He planned a feast that would bring people together, and as custom required, he invited everyone to share in the merit of the offering. A temporary hall of bamboo and thatch had to be built, and many hands were needed. When the invitation spread, people from nearby villages came with open hearts. They worked with care and eagerness, tying bamboo poles, weaving thatch, lifting, shaping, and preparing the hall that would soon welcome the monks. Laughter rose with the sound of tools. There was a sense of purpose in the air, simple and warm. Amid the movement, the villager noticed a man standing apart from the group. He was from the hills, and he looked on with a heavy sadness. While others moved with spirit and intention, he remained still, watching yet unable to join. Concern touched the villager's mind. He approached gently, asking whether the man was ill or in pain. The question was simple, but it carried real care. The man from the hills answered with quiet regret. He wished to work, he wished to gain merit, he wished to be part of the coming feast, but his stomach was empty, and hunger made his limbs weak. He felt he could not lift a single pole nor tie a single knot in such a state. Hearing this, the villager did not hesitate. Compassion moved him. He rushed to his kitchen and returned with food, vegetable soup and fried chicken. He placed the meal before the hungry man without a second thought, offering strength before expecting effort. It was an act of kindness that asked for nothing in return. For a short while, the villager returned to his work. He felt at ease, knowing he had cared for the man from the hills. With food in his stomach, surely the man would soon join the others and share in the building of the alms hall. But when the villager looked back, he was surprised. The man from the hills was standing in the same place, still watching the workers with the same sadness in his eyes. His posture had not changed. His hands were still empty. His feet had not moved. This time the villager hurried toward him, concern rising again. He asked what troubled him now, since hunger was no longer holding him back. The man lowered his head and answered with the same quiet tone. He still wished to work. He still wished to gain merit. He still wished to join in the feast. But now his stomach was too full. With such heaviness he felt he could not work either. Just as an empty stomach had weakened him, a full stomach now kept him from action. The villager listened. In that simple moment he saw the pattern clearly. The man from the hills was always waiting for the perfect condition, never hungry, never full, never tired, never uneasy, and so he remained unmoving, though the chance to act was right before him. The monk shared this story to show the layman his own struggle without judgment, without force, only with the gentle clarity of a mirror. When the monk finished the tale, the layman understood its meaning at once. The story was simple, yet it reflected his own life with quiet accuracy. Like the man from the hills, he had always waited for the perfect time at first. Work stood in the way. Later, worry took its place. And just as the hungry man claimed he could not work on an empty stomach, and then again on a full one, the layman found a reason to delay his practice in every season of life. The monk did not point this out with reproach. He simply allowed the story to speak for him. In its soft rhythm lay the truth. The mind always seeks the perfect moment. Yet such a moment never arrives. There will always be duties, concerns, uncertainties, and shifting tides of thought. The layman's devotion had been sincere. His respect for the monk had been deep, but sincerity alone cannot bring the heart to stillness. A mind waiting for ideal conditions will remain waiting forever. As the lesson settled within him, the commissioner lowered his gaze. His struggle had never been about time, but about the restlessness inside. An inner hunger, then an inner heaviness, both pulling him away from the path he wished to follow. The monk's smile remained gentle. He had offered the story not to discourage the layman, but to guide him toward a quieter, steadier way of living. The monk's story stayed with the layman. Like a soft echo, he saw now that waiting for the perfect moment had only tied him to endless delay. His worries for his family were real, but they did not need to rule his heart. Even in the presence of concern, a small space, a practice could exist, just enough to steady the mind, just enough to bring clarity to the days ahead. The monk encouraged him once more, not with pressure, but with warmth. Spiritual practice did not need grand gestures. It could begin with a breath, with a moment of quiet reflection, with the gentle choice to pause before the mind wandered. Too far, these small steps did not require an empty schedule or a peaceful world. They required only presence. The layman understood, and with that understanding, he took a slow, steady breath, not a perfect one, simply a beginning. As the monk rose to leave, the air between them felt lighter. The lesson had been given. The next step belonged to the layman, and he was ready to take it with calm intention. If this story has brought you a moment of stillness, you may walk with us a little longer. You may like, you may subscribe, you may return when your heart seeks a quiet place. Walk gently, and I will meet you in the next story.